I am a huge tradition guy, and I think that it's like 2 years to start a tradition. And I'm just going to say that the having you on to talk bad ballots and just ballots in general and baseball in January, especially now during the lockout, it's one of my favorite things. So I have a couple bad ballots for you. This is again one of my favorite things is when you go on Twitter and like that guy from like Ryan Thibodeau or whatever will tweet out the ballots.
Great account too. He's a great account. He's a must follow during this time of the year. I think I unfollow him like the second that they announce everyone, and I'm like, all right, I'll see you next year, Ryan. Like probably right around Christmas, I'll follow you again. But he's a must follow if you don't follow him.
Right, because he's the ballot guy. So then you see him tweet out anything other than ballots. You're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. Like, just give me the ballots. Like, it's all I want.
So first up, I have a couple bad ballots. These are blank ballots, which, by the way, the nerve, the gall to not fill out a single name for these baseball writers to think they're holier than thou to say nobody is worthy. It's first off, what's your take on a blank ballot?
I think it's the worst thing you can do. Like, I get that, like, if you don't want to vote for alleged steroid guys, that's fine. That's whatever. But like, there are still players on that list who have not been connected to steroids or, who've just clean players all around who like deserve a vote. It's insane to go. And I don't like that a blank ballot goes against a player because again, it's almost like if you don't vote for Ken Griffey Jr., say a couple of years ago, and like it goes against him. It shouldn't be that. It's like if you don't vote in a presidential election, it's not like it doesn't affect negatively like the candidate. It's like it's messed up how like one guy who just wants to take a stand and be like, well, I don't think anyone is good enough this year, blah blah blah. It's like, all right, dude, well, everyone else thinks 10 people are good enough. So like, why do you think that not one guy is good enough? I think you either have to make them all like anonymous, like don't put any names, don't release any, because I guarantee you if they stopped putting names to it, then people's ballots would probably be more regular. And like if you had them not sign an NDA, but be like, you can't talk about who you voted for. Because again, I feel like the writers some guys are doing this because they know this is the chance to get my name in lights. This is my chance to make the story about me. And it's like, well, it's not about you, Dan Shaughnessy. It's not about you, the guy, like the one guy who didn't vote for Derek Jeter, which I'm fine with. Don't vote for Derek Jeter. But like, I feel like people do it to be like, this is my turn now. I'm going to show them like, I'm so powerful. Here's what I can do. And like, I can change, the course of their career by not voting for them for the Hall of Fame. So it's the blank ballots. They irk me so much. And again, like, I also like, you have a couple guys who do it a couple years in a row. I think if you do it like 2 years in a row, take the ballot away the next year. If you don't think anyone is qualified enough, that's fine. Because guess what? There's thousands of people who would love to vote for this thing, and they would give out all 10 of their votes. This guy, if you don't want to, that's fine. Whatever you do it 2 years in a row, it's yanked.
There's so many great points you raised there. It kind of just reminds me of the Tom Verducci piece from last year, where it was like the feeling the weight of history in your hand. Like,
yep.
I mean, it's cool you get to vote for the Hall of Fame, but it's not like you're electing the next, like, I don't know, world leader or something. I don't understand why they think that they are, like I said, holier than now. And you're right. There should be you have to fill out. There should be at least one. You know what I mean? Because when you look at a ballot of like 20 or 30 people, are you saying that there's not a single guy on there that was? I mean, we've had Hall of Fame ballots in the past, or Hall of Fame elections in the past where nobody gets in, but that's just because we have this weird 75% thing. That again doesn't make any sense. If this was a presidential election, that's why we have the Electoral College and not just straight popular vote, because you have Dan Shaughnessy out there, filling out only one person, which he's again on my bad ballots. This is like an SVP bad beat segment.
Yeah.
So yeah, first up we have Michael Hunt. This again, he just got dunked on for a myriad of reasons. One, because his name is Mike Hunt. So the quote tweets were great. He's from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Didn't fill out a single name. This just reminds me of when I was in high school. I took the AP test and forgot to fill out half of it because I didn't know there was back. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you in your education career. Just didn't see there was a back.
No, I don't. I may have filled it all out, but I still may have only got like half, just being that dumb. Yeah, I mean, I remember when the Michael Hunt one came out, because again, it's like, wait, what's his name? And then it's like, oh, okay, this is again a guy who it seems like he's going to use this as his platform. And I think, was he one of the guys who's done it 2 years in a row? I can't remember.
That's next up on my bad beats.
Yeah, again, it's just like, why even vote? Like, just don't turn in a ballot. Like, I don't know. It's insane. It's insane to me.
I think there needs to be a thorough review process for the writer ballot, like the writers that like vote for this, because we have a ton of former writers that just aren't currently sports writing voting for the Hall of Fame. Like, I guess because they were like grandfathered in or something. But Mike Hunt is a former beat writer. He doesn't currently cover anything, but he gets to fill out a blank ballot and get his name on Twitter.
Yeah. So again, like, why? Like you're 100% right. Like, why is he still voting? Obviously, if he was a beat writer, he followed the game. He's been around. He's been, around teams at the ballparks, all that stuff. But it's like, if you've been retired for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like, are you keeping up as much? And obviously, the guys he's voting on, he has seen. You would think if he covered baseball for that long, a lot of these guys have been retired for many, many years. But yeah, it's like, why? It's almost like a dry. Like, once you retire, you should. And I'm sure there's a process like this, but like there has to be some process where you take a test or like I don't know. Or again, like you age them out. Like, hey, if you've been retired for 5 years, maybe you vote for another 2 times or something like that. And it's like, thanks for everything. We're going to push you off kind of into the retirement home, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they're really this isn't the Supreme Court. We're not doing jobs for life. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how these people can keep their was it the BBWAA or whatever membership.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Steve Marcus, who this is the second year in a row he's filled out a blank ballot, and the last guy he voted for was Jeter. So what the hell?
Again, it's like a guy. He has his own narrative that he wants to make. He has his own. He wants to be in the spotlight. Like, and that's why I like blogging about him, but I kind of don't because that this is what they want. They want the blogs and the articles and the radio people to talk about them, and then they can like puff their chest out and be like, "Yep, see, like I got under their skin." It's like, yeah, but we know what you're doing because you're being an ass about it. And again, like, who are you to determine whether these baseball players, who are some of the greatest players we've ever seen, like, why are you the guy that gets to decide this? There's so many, like you talked about, there's so many flawed things about the Hall of Fame in general and like the voting process, and they just, I mean, again, it's just toss it on the pile of stuff that Manfred, his to-do list.
I think I fell into the trap of what you just said, whereas like I was so fascinated with why these guys decided to fill out blank ballots that I actually looked to see what these blank balloters wrote about. And Steve Marcus said, I filled out my blank ballot, nobody on it. I left out the new and usual PED suspects. I didn't vote for Kurt Schilling at his own request. I strongly considered Scott Rowland, but Rowland doesn't compare with elite third baseman Arditti in Cooperstown. He's tweeted that out. So I didn't know Kurt Schilling told people not to vote for him, but apparently he did.
That was after last year where he basically tried, like, remember when T.O. tried to do in like NFL, was basically like, take me off the ballot when he didn't get in 1 year, and he basically said, just don't vote for me that next year. Schilling did the same thing. He actually petitioned the MLB to take his name off of the ballot because I think this is his 10th year. So this is the final year, and I think after last year, his 9th year, he said, just don't even put me on next year. And MLB was like, no, we can't, because you met the requirements. Like, you're going to stay on the ballot. And so I think he was like, okay, then don't vote for me. So I'm sure there are still some people who I see are voting for him, which is fine. Again, I mean, it depends on your criteria. I mean, people don't like him for his political views, for some of the stuff he said. That's fine. Again, I mean, if you think he's one of the best baseball players of all time, I think he deserves your vote. But yeah, again, and then it's tough where it's like, oh, I don't know. Kurt told me not to vote for him. Do I still vote for him? I don't know. It's weird, but oh man, I was gonna say something else too, and I forget. I had it lined up. The no ballots, like I forget. I'll come back to it when it pops into my head.
No, I mean, you're exactly right about the Schilling thing. Like, he really muddied the waters where it's like, I think he was trending towards a Hall of Fame selection, but I looked up the quote, and he said he didn't want to have like basically the writers that kept crapping on him. He didn't want to be voted in by those people. He wanted to be voted in by the Veterans Committee, where he thinks that those people have a better grasp on whatever. Basically, just like the same people that Harold Baines in.
So that's a whole nother. I mean, I'm fully for the Veterans Committee, and I kind of think that voting should be by the players and managers. I'm kind of leaning this way with like the MLB, the awards now. For like we saw it here in Baltimore. Obviously, we're very partial to it. Like Ryan Mountcastle got named the AL Rookie of the Year by his peers, by the players, by the managers, and then he came in like sixth, I think, in the AP vote, or not AP, like the Baseball Writers of America vote. So it's like, why are we putting so much stock into these writers? Like, wouldn't you? I feel like the players, especially, and I think I talked to a couple of the guys in the Orioles minor league system. They said the same thing. Like, if the players, the guys who see Mountcastle every day, and not just Mountcastle, any of these guys, like, why aren't we taking their opinions into consideration more when it comes to stuff like that? They're the ones who see him and like how hard he's working, and they play with him and they play against him. It's like, I think you would hold. I think that holds more merit than some guy who, again, is a beat writer for the Minnesota Twins, who has a vote and is like, I saw Ryan Mountcastle 6 times last year. I don't know. Yeah, I'll vote him 6 just because you're not that familiar. But like, the players know and they're keeping up. So I would love to see that change. Like, hey, writers, you guys think you're so important? Hit the road. Like, you guys can still have your play votes. They're not going to count for anything because guess what? Basically, it's basically all going to be like the Veterans Committee now, where again you're going to have these guys who are either in the Hall of Fame, managers, players, whatever. They're going to be the ones voting now. I think that would be really neat because again, I think the players obviously they have a good gauge on it, on who deserves to be in and stuff like. I also think the players would I think that brings them more joy. Again, their coworkers, the guys they went against, for them to be like, you know what, that guy's awesome. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that would be neat. And my lad, I do remember what I was talking about. The guy who said that he didn't want to vote for any of the new PED guys. I would love to go back and see if any of those guys voted for Bud Selig too to be in the Hall of Fame, because I'm sure a lot of them did because he's in. And guess what? He was commissioner when all the steroid stuff was going on, and you are out of your mind if you think he didn't know about it. So I would love to go back and see if any of them had voted for Bud, to kind of see, what their opinion on the PEDs and everything was back then.
I think at the end of the day, we just need a better system of checks and balances. Like, I'd love to see maybe like a 50-50 split of players and writers, just something to take a little bit more of like the, so guys aren't feeling like they have like Tom Verducci said, the weight of the world in their hands in the letter or whatever. Mm-hmm. I have my last bad ballot is Dan Shaughnessy. You mentioned him earlier, Boston Globe writer since 1981, did not vote for David Ortiz. He didn't vote for anybody except for one Mr. Jeff Kent, who, I love Jeff Kent, most home runs by any second baseman. So, I would vote for him, but for Dan Shaughnessy, for Dan Shaughnessy to submit a one-person ballot and not have it be for somebody a little bit more like up there in terms of people caring about him, it was odd to say the least.
And again, this is the second year in a row that he's done that for Jeff Kent. Only voted for Jeff Kent. He only voted for Mariano Rivera in 2019. He only voted for Derek Jeter in 2020, which, like, those two, okay, that's fine. Okay, again, Jeter, say what you want about him. I think he's the most overrated player of all time.
Yes.
He was going to get in. He was just going to get in. Mariano Rivera is the best closer that we'll ever see. That's fine. But the Jeff Kent thing, I've blogged about it 2 years in a row, a day apart, one year and 1 day apart. Last year, I blogged it on today, January 12th. Yesterday was the Dan Shaughnessy blog for this year, January 11th. So again, it's like, as this is a ritual, like me and you meeting up, this is going to be a ritual too. Like me blogging about Dan Shaughnessy only voting for Jeff Kent. And it's bizarre. Like I said, like, I don't know if, like, did Jeff Kent save Dan Shaughnessy's dog from a fire? And he's like, how can I ever repay you? And Jeff Kent is like, you have to vote for only me for the next 10 years. And Shaughnessy's like, I'll do whatever you say. Thank you so much. Like, does he owe him money? Does he, like, did he? I don't know. Like, and it's so weird again, because Dan Shaughnessy's wrote for the Boston Globe forever. Jeff Kent played in San Francisco. Like, it's not like he was like, oh, he played 40 years with the Red Sox and they grew up and they knew each other. It's like, no, like, the Red Sox and the Giants have, like, no, there's basically no history there. Like, it's very weird. And again, I know Shaughnessy is not liked by people in Boston. I know he and Ortiz had, like, a real big, like, there were some racial undertones in a couple articles that Shaughnessy had wrote about David Ortiz. And basically said to his face, like, well, you're Dominican, you all do steroids. And I don't think Ortiz took very kindly to that, whether he took steroids or not. The race thing is pretty wild. But yeah, it's kind of crazy because 6 of the 7 people from the globe voted for David Ortiz. The only one that didn't was Dan Shaughnessy. And again, you only voted for Jeff Kent, and it's just it's a head scratcher why he's doing this. And again, it's like, I don't want to publicize it and I don't want to give him the satisfaction, but it's just so bizarre because, like you said, Jeff Kent's a great player. He's awesome. Won an MVP, like you said, most home runs by second baseman. He was a damn good second baseman. But like, I don't wake up every day being like, I got to get Jeff Kent in the Hall of Fame. I got to. Like, it's so bizarre. I don't get it. And I guess, we're going to fast forward to next year and we'll see if he does it again or who his new victim is, not victim, but who his new favorite is next year. Like, it's going to be bizarre.
Having the Dan Shaughnessy endorsement is almost as bad as like having him like come out against you. It's just an odd hill to die on. The Jeff Kent hill.
Strange.
Like I said, I mean, like I said, if I had a Hall of Fame vote, I would put Jeff Kent in there just because I remember like he was a little bit before my time, but even when he was like in the Dodgers in the later part of his career, still awesome. The one thing I couldn't find this, I just remember, you ever have those thoughts in the back of your brain that you can't really like, back up with any kind of logical thought? I think I heard Jeff Kent's like one of the biggest dickheads of all time.
Yeah, I know like he and Bonds got in a fight like in the dugout. I've heard, or I just remember hearing things that like he wasn't a very nice guy. And I'm trying to think of like if there's one like story that sticks out. I'm sure I've read stuff along the way, but yeah, for some reason too that kind of sticks out. Like, oh, Jeff Kent's kind of a dickhead. And again, I could be making that up. I just remember like him fighting with Bonds in the dugout.
And that probably has a little bit more concrete of a backing. The other one that comes to my mind when I can't find any record of this at all, but I just remember seeing it was, do you remember Rodrigo Lopez back on the Orioles in like the mid 2000s? I just remember a video of him eating styrofoam cups. And I swear to God, there was like a massing cut to him, and they might even done like a little breakout piece on it. But apparently, he eats like styrofoam cups to calm his nerves.
Yeah, he like it's like a calming thing. Yeah, he like chews around it. I think I remember that, something like that.
I have spent the last 10 years of my life trying to find that video. So I'm gonna go to my grave trying to figure. And apparently, he did it all the time to like the point where they did the thing on it. But again, that's one of those facts that like I have no backing. But I just kind of remembered that it was a thing.
Yeah, I remember something like that. And like, cause I think I can see the visual too. Of him. Yeah. It's kind of like chewing around. Yeah. I don't know. Again, that footage is probably gone and lost forever, but I think you're right. I think you're onto something.
We need to do like a mini series, like a document mini series about this because it's fascinating. Apparently they made it seem like he was eating like a rack of styrofoam cups a day. So
if it helped him pitch, go for it.
I mean, he had 18 losses a year for a while there. So yeah.
It didn't help him then.
Didn't help him. So yeah, maybe you should have laid off the styrofoam, maybe more of the actual food. But yeah, the Dan Shaughnessy, the Jeff Kent thing was so odd, but there's a lot of other first year guys on this ballot that, I mean, there's a lot of like mediocre players they're going to get one vote from a writer, but there's a lot of first year guys that I think have a pretty decent-ish case. So when I say these first year guys, do any of them jump off the page to you as like, either should be on the ballot, kept on the ballot, as in they need 5% more to stay on, or, might fool around and get elected this year? Ryan Howard, big time Timmy Jim, Tim Lincecum, Joe Nathan, Big Poppy, Jonathan Papelbon, A-Rod, Jimmy Rollins, and Mark Teixeira. Do any of them jump out off the page to you?
I mean, I like Ortiz. Ortiz is arguably the best DH of all time. Like I thought he would get in. I didn't think he'd be first ballot. Like it seems like he's going to be. Like he's every time he posts one of those the ballots, I'm like, oh, there's another Ortiz. Like it seems like he's on every one. So I'm like, damn, he's going to be first ballot, which is, I mean, good for him. It's crazy. Again, it's like, I guess, again, this is a guy who had a positive steroid test not come out from the Mitchell report, not supposed to be released, and it kind of leaked out, but it's like, that's a positive test. And when you're beloved by the media, I guess it kind of shows what happens. Like people didn't like Bonds, and Bonds never tested positive. So yeah, I was interested in that. again, I thought he would get in, not on the first ballot. Who were some of the other? Ryan Howard. See, like Ryan Howard's a tough one because there was a couple years where, like 3 or 4 years, where he was by far one of the best players in baseball. And then I mean, when he was bad, he was bad, and like his career wasn't as long. He didn't really have the long career, but he was damn good. Lincecum's the same way. What did he win? 2 or 3? 2 Cy Youngs? 3 Cy Youngs?
I think, yeah, at least
2.
two.
But yeah, again, it's like, I mean, he was when he was on, he was arguably the best pitcher in baseball. He's, one of the best pitchers in the league. That's a tough one. Joe Nathan, I think, is a guy who may get in. Like, I don't think they're going to put him in. Like, he may have to be like a Billy Wagner, where it's kind of like you're just sitting there for a couple years. But I think he has the numbers. Let me see. Who else did you say? You said Papelbon. I don't know. I don't see Papelbon getting in. Again, a guy who's not very well liked by the media. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And I know his numbers were very good, but again, like the way his career ended, him choking Bryce Harper in the dugout, like, I don't know. That'll be an interesting one. A-Rod, again, is another guy who should be in. You said Jimmy Rollins. I mean, Jimmy Rollins had some really, really good years. That's going to be an interesting one because, like, yeah, he won an MVP, but like, was he ever the best player was he ever the best player in the league? Obviously the MVP says one thing, but I don't know. I mean, it's a good class of first guys. It's a lot of interesting names. It's a lot of like, I could go either way. Like, I'm not gonna like lose sleep if Tim Lincecum is eventually inducted into the Hall of Fame, but I'm not gonna be like stomping around like, I can't believe he's not in Cooperstown.
A lot of those kind of players. This is also the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good season, where you have that being thrown around. Because, like, you're right, Ryan Howard, like, yeah, 2006, he had like 50 something home runs. Lincecum, MVPs, or Cy Youngs, Joe Nathan, but like, then you have guys like Jimmy Rollins, who I think Jimmy Rollins might fall into the category like what Scott Rowland is, like where I think I saw somebody trying to bang the drum for him earlier about his career WAR, and I don't know. Also, you have two coworkers on the first year on the Hall of Fame. Big Poppy and A-Rod. So I wonder if that's going to factor into your decision.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get CC'd on the emails with them. Yeah, I mean, A-Rod falls in the Bonds category where I think some of the writers hate him, even though they made a lot of money probably writing about him, and his whatever he did, whatever he didn't do. Same thing with Bonds. Again, it looks like Ortiz is trending to be a first ballot guy, which when the media loves you, it's kind of like, they'll put some of the stuff to the side and they'll give you a vote. So
that's such a great point, because you're right. There's this infatuation in the media with David Ortiz because he's Poppy. It's just Poppy being Poppy. I think we talked about this last
laughing on the post game show, and he switched like Frank Thomas's water with vodka. The one, did you ever see that clip? Like,
on the Fox thing. Yeah,
and he's big, and again, he's Poppy and he's flashy. So it's like, oh, it's Poppy, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you got Barry Bonds, who's the best baseball player that's ever lived, and like, you guys won't even like look at him. Like, all you guys want to talk about is like, yeah, well, his head got bigger. It's like, all right, cool. Guess what? David Ortiz has a positive test out there. You guys are fine with that, but the cream in the clear, that's what do Bonds in.
So this is my favorite time of the year. What do you have the ballot in front of you?
I do.
You can have up to 10 guys. Let's just do a little Eric Arditti ballot, like official Hall of Fame ballot.
We'll go Bonds, and I'm running down in order.
Yeah.
We'll go Bonds, Clemens, Andrew Jones, Ortiz, I think Manny, A-Rod, Sheffield, Sosa, and then now I'm kind of circling back to the guys. Like, I kind of want to, like, Todd Helton. I think Todd Helton should be in there. And like, I kind of want to put Prince Fielder in there. Like, I think Prince Fielder, like, again, I think all those guys at some point were in the conversation for one of the best players in baseball. Like, that's kind of how I, like, in my mind, it's like, were they, are they a Hall of Famer? Were they the best player at their position for an extended period of time? I think all of those guys were. And again, like, maybe not all first ballot guys, obviously not all first ballot guys, but yeah, I think all those guys. And again, like, when it comes down to it, the Hall of Fame is a museum. Like, it tells the story of the sport of baseball. Like, can you tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds, without Sammy Sosa, without I'm trying to like look over these, like Ortiz, without Alex Rodriguez, without Manny Ramirez. No, there's huge chunks of like in 50 years, like, hey, Daddy, who helped the Red Sox break the curse? It's like, well, they had a guy named Bill Miller, they had a guy named Doug Mankiewicz, and then they had redacted name who hit 40 home runs a year, but we can't talk about them because they're not in the Hall of Fame because they, may have taken something. And it's like, no, these guys, like, the story of baseball cannot be told without the story of Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez and Andrew Jones and Barry Bonds and guys like this. And again, it's like the museums aren't all good. There's stuff in these museums that are not fun to talk about, that are not good topics. But again, it's like, even if it's like, if you want to put the separate wing, the asterisk wing, whatever it is, like, here are the guys that may have been involved in a steroid thing. Sure, put them in. Again, people have to, you cannot talk about baseball without talking about those guys. And again, when it comes down to it, that's what I think these knucklehead voters have to realize. It's a museum. Like, it is a museum. I get it. There's a whole big ceremony and it's a very cool thing. But when it comes down to it, it's a museum. That's all it is.
It's so funny you mentioned Prince Fielder, because I was literally having that debate with a friend of mine the other day, because like I'm a big, like, body of work is cool, but like having an awesome peak, like a 5-year run where you're the best player in baseball almost, I think that has a little merit, at least for staying on the ballot. Like, I don't know what Prince Fielder is polling at right now, but and also you have to, my favorite thing about this is the nerds will come in and they will tell you a stat that justifies having Scott Rowland as a Hall of Famer because his career WAR was 9th best all time among third basemen. I never once watched Scott Rowland and thought, this man is a Hall of Famer.
Like, Rowland is weird because, like, he was a hell of a player. He is very, very good. And again, like, I was younger when he was playing. So, like, I'm sure, like, if I pull up his numbers, I'd be like, oh, that's a lot of home runs. And yeah, like you said, like, people will pull up, will be like, well, actually, his defensive metrics, and I mean, that's what he was known for, was his defense. And it's like, well, actually, he's not as good as we thought he was. And the 8 Gold Gloves, he should have only won 4, and like stuff like that. It's like, all right, like, I'm looking at his numbers now. It looks like his career high was 34. That's fine. Like, that's good. It's not, but like, people will be like, well, actually, a third baseman should be a power hitter, blah, blah, blah. And it's
his
like,
ex-Woba. Yeah.
Like, just, it doesn't all have to be like the numbers and this formula and this and that. Like, I think the eye test, and like, I also kind of like just doing like a real quick, like, Scott Rowland, Hall of Famer, yes or no. And it's like, you don't think, you just kind of go. And it's like, was he Hall of Famer? Yes. Why? I don't know. I think he was. And it's like, again, he's kind of like the Tim Lincecum and guys like that, where it's like, were they, a shoe in for the Hall of Fame? No, but it's like, man, they were a good player for a long time. He's a very interesting case, and again, it's like, it's weird because he's just not really talked about as like a third base legend. When I mean, he was very, very good at third.
Yeah, it's again, they're the nerds out there that are sometimes ruining baseball. Sometimes they do really cool things. This is not one of those. They're just bullied me into thinking that he's a Hall of Famer. They've just like taken a bulldozer over what I thought was what Hall of Famer, and they're like, well, actually, the career WAR was 70.2 or something. But for my ballot, I'm going to run through it really quick. I have a first year, like, I don't vote for guys that are steroid users to be a first ballot guy. I don't know. It just sounds like good in theory. So I have Bonds. I have Clemens. We talked about him last year. He's coming back again. Tim Hudson needs to stay on the ballot. 200 career wins is a new 300. I have Jeff Kent, like Dan Shaughnessy. Yep. I have Poppy, which I guess I just contradicted everything I just said about steroid users. But Kurt Schilling, sorry, bud, you're getting in there. Scott Rowland, because I got bulldozed, and Billy Wagner. So
okay.
I'm not a big Sheffield guy. I'm not a big Sosa guy.
See, Sheffield was my favorite player besides for Cal growing up. Like, favorite player not in the Orioles all time is Gary Sheffield. So I'm very impartial though. So I can see why not though.
Yeah, it's again, I just feel like an idiot because I just said I don't vote for first ballot guys that are steroid users, but it's Poppy. So
and again, that's the media thing. Like, well, it's Poppy. He smiles and he has a little, the gap, and He does his handshake, the handshake or the high five, whatever. You're like, yeah, it's Poppy.
Okay. There should be a rule. Okay, I want to amend what I said. There's a rule that you can't be a first ballot guy that has steroids unless you're crazy likable and smash a dugout phone.
I don't have any issues with that. I think that's fine.